After 3 episodes in, it's time to tackle Power Rangers! Welcome to episode 4 of Hyper Battle. Or as my fellow Jedi Dropout host wanted me to call it, Mitchell's Ballhouse. Yeah, if you don't listen to Jedi Dropout's main show, that's a bit of a weird tangent, but, So, yeah, if you might have guessed, I'm your host, Mitchell, and, once again, I welcome you to the world of spandex-clad heroes, rubber-suited monsters, and just weird live action based off Japanese media that I love so very much. And this time we're actually tackling a American tokusatsu. And as the title says, we're dealing with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. However, for sanity's sake, mostly my own, which there is still some sanity left to me, we are only covering Season 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which is still like 60 bloody episodes, so yeah, most of the shows I've covered here have been, 48 to 50 episodes? And I haven't managed to rewatch all of Power Rangers. We'll get into that in a minute, but this is the OG. This is what made Power Rangers a household name. This is pure distilled 90s. And whoo boy, yeah, it is aged poorly. A lot worse than I thought it did. And don't take me as, oh, this is old and stupid and childish. I don't like this anymore. No, it's just not as good as my childhood made me think it was. I mean, the little voice in my head of my childhood is screaming at me that, no, this show is good, it's amazing. But the critic in me is like, dear God, that delivery was terrible. Dear God, that line itself could not be delivered good. Oh, the dialogue is just so bad in places. A lot of the guest actors have no idea how to handle the show. Some of the actual long-term actors, the main cast, they have some goofy lines and goofy reads, but this show is just so important to me still. I mean, it was my generation's real big thing. I mean, I had pretty much everything Power Rangers. Power Rangers towels, bed sheets, clothing, lots of the toys. Never the full Megazord though, I don't think. God, now I want to just go back to collect old toys. It's actually, you could probably blame this show for why I'm a avid toy collector, and yeah, and it's because of this show that we have Hyper Battle, because I love, this weird style of thing. But man, I still can't get over how poorly this show has aged. Like other shows from the same era, like Batman the Animated Show, not only has that show aged, I think in certain situations it's gotten better with either time or with myself maturing and understanding things better. But it's not hard to, like, I can just remember when I was a kid and my sister, who was 6 years older than me, tried to watch this, and she couldn't get that, why anyone would like this terrible show. And I mean, yeah, I can understand that now, trying to look back. Nostalgia goggles are not as strong for this show as other ones would be. But that said, this show still does have some really good parts that, the nostalgia goggles are not lying to me about. The introduction of the Green Ranger is still amazing. The fights are still really good for the effects at the time. That's one of the things. I can forgive poor visual effects, poor pacing for some fights, because I can look at this and go, okay, at the time when this show was made, that's the best they can do, or they did better than the best they can do. It's hard to put into words, but for everywhere the dialogue fails, the action does still hold up. Pardon me. And yeah, maybe we should actually just get into the show rather than me trying to surmise it. But as I've said several times, Super Sentai was made into Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. This Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is based off Zyuranger. And by based off, I mean they changed a lot. Zyuranger follows 5 people from ancient dinosaur times have woken up in modern Japan using their god beasts to battle the evil witch Bandora. In Power Rangers, we've got the evil witch Rita Repulsa waking up her nemesis Zordon, a floating head in a tube, summoning 5 teenagers with attitude, and imbuing them with the powers of 3 dinosaurs and 2 mammals from prehistoric times. And yeah, they did pretty well in adapting Zyuranger. They did their own thing with it, but they kept a lot of the iconology. They did tweak a few things here and there, like replace certain symbols with the Power Rangers lightning bolt, which, yeah, that's fine. And wherever the show did wherever Zyuranger did one thing, Power Rangers would take it in a different direction. So they basically zigged for every Zyuranger zag. And the most prominent example is in Zyuranger, the Green Ranger actually died. I mean, straight up died. And in Power Rangers, he just lost his powers. Both were how they handled how the character was removed. For Power Rangers, they just depowered him, and in Zyuranger, he died, but gave his powers to the Red Ranger. So in Power Rangers, before he died, the Green Ranger lost all his powers, he transferred what was left of them to the Red Ranger. It's a pretty good way of getting around that. I mean, in that era, it was very difficult to find a TV show for kids that would actually use the word die. I mean, just look at early Dragon Ball Z dubs, where every mention of death is sending them to the next dimension, or the creation of the Shadow Realm for Yu-Gi-Oh! Yeah, the Shadow Realm was not a real thing in that show. I mean, yeah, a lot of people died in Yu-Gi-Oh! And a lot, and they did cut out a few things with Witch Bandora. I mean, one of the things was Witch Bandora often summoned Satan. Straight up, in the Japanese, she would say, "I summons the powers of Satan." In Power Rangers, no, it's just evil cantations that were more generic, less religious. And there actually was... Power Rangers got so popular in North America that the Saban, the company that made Power Rangers out of Zyuranger, called up... It's a toy? Called them up and basically said, "Hey, can you film some more things with the Zyuranger suits for us and send them over?" Which is what the Japanese refer to as Zoo 2 or Zyuranger 2, where they made a lot more stuff, making Power Rangers a lot longer, giving them a lot more scenes, and re-adding in the Green Ranger for certain fights, because he lost his powers. Well, he got them back at some points, but not to the same degree. He was always tenuous. Pardon me again. But we should probably actually... This is not exactly a very character-driven show, but we should probably still explain the characters. I mean, I've mentioned Rita Repulsa, one of the iconic villains of the 90s. I still absolutely love her. Her performance is still really great. And I'm not just saying that because I've met her actress at the last con I was at. by the way, she is absolutely friendly and lovely to hang around. But the Power Rangers, we have Jason the Red Ranger, Zach the Black Ranger, Billy the Blue, Trini the Yellow, and Kimberly the Pink, and later Tommy Green. And basically, it starts off with the 5 primary Rangers, and then when Tommy comes in, almost basically becomes his show for a while. Although he is the more interesting of the Rangers. Although we cannot talk about the Power Rangers themselves without mentioning, the Black Ranger is played by a black actor, and Yellow was by a Asian actress. Yeah. From what I understand, this was absolutely done by mistake. There was no connotations involved until someone pointed out by episode 5 or 6 from what I've read, and they're like, crap, it's too late to fix this now. But the 5 Rangers are basically, the most commonly termed from is goody-goodies. They're all basically perfect Boy Scouts, preaching about how to handle bullies constantly, how to say no to this when it comes to, bad influences, and they're not characters. I mean, they've got character traits. Jason is the karate teacher. Zach is the dancer. He loves his hip-hop and his dancing. Billy is the nerd who is absolutely ripped, but in show they pretend like he is a dweeb. Trini is just... I don't really remember Trini's character. And Kimberly is the cute one, and the gymnastic one, and the valley girl. I mean, she has the most things stapled to her, I think, which did make her endearing to a lot of people. And Tommy shows up as kind of the bad boy with a heart of gold. But yeah, I mean, this is our heroes. They are just kind of bland. Later Power Rangers shows will actually give us characters, some of them being fantastic, deeper than you'd expect from this, but it all started from a very basic place. Oh, I almost forgot. The 2 most popular characters that almost broke off into their own show, Bulk and Skull, the bullies. And yeah, they were so popular, Saban and Fox wanted to give them their own spin-off show, which, I don't know. I would probably want to see that now as an adult, because they actually were they were basically the show's comic relief, and they had their moments. I mean, they have some amazing slapstick, some good one-liners here and there. They are just amazing, but they also have their, well, this is a show for kids, so let's dumb down some of the jokes, or, some really stupid slapstick. And every time I think about this show and how amazing it was as a kid, I immediately, as an adult, think of how annoying some of it is to try and sit through. Prime example, one of the supporting characters Zordon has is a little robot named Alpha 5. He is basically, because Zordon's a head in a tube, whenever he needs someone to push buttons on the control panel or hand things out or just go out in the field to help the Rangers, he sends his little robot. And I loved Alpha 5 as a kid. Oh, I absolutely adored him. As an adult, God, he annoys me. And I really don't want to say that because I actually have a dear close friend because of Alpha. The teacher didn't understand what he was trying to say. I did. Explain it to the teacher. She helped him spell Alpha. And we became good friends, and we're still friends today. And that's one of the things that Power Rangers, even with age, cannot take away, is the bonds I made for this show. I mean, so many days in the backyard, pretending to be Power Rangers. Just, while the characters themselves were not amazingly written, they were incredibly endearing. And it's not just the heroes who were kind of bland. I mean, beyond Rita, I can only think of two of her minions. Goldar, her general, basically he's the monster that shows up more than once a week. He shows up to be the enforcer, the big, dumb, tough guy. And Finster, her assistant in terms of monster making. And the funny thing about Finster, he's actually voiced by Robert Axelrod, who I also met at a convention, and he later on went on to voice Rita's replacement, a really terrifying villain named Lord Zed, who we won't talk about, unfortunately, because that's Season 2 of Power Rangers. Yeah, Season 2 of Power Rangers basically starts with Lord Zed, so if you never really figured where the two seasons split, Rita is the villain for Season 1, Zed is the villain for Season 2, they team up together for Season 3. Basically, it's a bit more complex than that, but what exactly do the Power Rangers do? Well, every week Rita would send a monster. Actually, for a while it was they were doing a new episode every day, in like prime time. So that tells you how big this show was. But essentially, every week Rita sends in a monster to destroy the Power Rangers, so that she can conquer the world. Or, yeah, it is to conquer the world she wants to do. I'm thinking about Witch Mandora. She kind of wants to destroy Earth. But Rita was defeated by Zordon 10,000 years ago. And she's well aware that basically, if I destroy the Power Rangers, then Zordon cannot stop me this time. Which makes sense. I mean, take out the only thing stopping you. But the thing about Rita is, sometimes she has a good plan, and sometimes she just kind of wants to ruin the Power Rangers' days more than kill them. But, again, early 90s children's show, she couldn't exactly, assassinate them. She is also aware of where Zordon's base is, but due to plot MacGuffins, she can't attack him directly. But once she defeats the Rangers, then she can. She needs what they use to transform. And the show, like I said, was converting Zoolander into a North American show, and it was actually really brilliant how they did this. They would have, usually, Rita would send out a group of monsters. Her foot soldiers are called, I think, putties? Yeah, putties. Send them out to attack a location where the Rangers are in their civilian form. They would fight them. The monster would attack on their spot, so they would transform and then teleport. And that would be their way of jump cutting from live action North American filming to the streets of somewhere in Tokyo. Pretty seamlessly. Although sometimes the film quality would degrade, but that's a difference between how filming technology was in North America and in Japan. I think they used a lot more rudimentary, lower quality in live-action Japanese filming, but that was to save money. It was easier to get higher-grade Hollywood stuff in North America, obviously. Pardon me. And yeah, that was basically how the premise of the show worked. We'd follow Rangers for 5-10 minutes, them doing things around town. Rita would cause a problem. They'd try and solve it. Then they'd fight. And then they would solve the problem and then wrap it up at the end of the day. Usually the fight would culminate with the Rangers having to summon their giant robots, which North Americans have dubbed Zords, and that has stuck forever. But only once, I think, they've been called Zords in Super Sentai. And the Zords are the 5 animals that represent their powers: the Tyrannosaurus, the Pterodactyl, the Mastodon, Triceratops, Saber-toothed Tiger, did I say Mastodon? Anyway, those 5 would come together, combine, and after Rita made her make my monster grow. And that was the formula. It was incredibly formulaic, and as a kid, I loved it. I watched every single episode. As an adult, I sat through a good 10, 20 episodes, and that was pretty much it. Now, when the Green Ranger's introduced, they made a big deal out of him, because, well, for one thing, I think he was the first evil Power Ranger, or evil Sentai, and they obviously incorporated that for Power Rangers. Rita noticed Tommy was Tommy Oliver, the character, moved to the city. He managed to defeat some putties on his own without having to transform, which is something the Rangers can barely do at this point. So she kidnaps him, brainwashes him, and gives him a similar metal power coin, which lets him transform into the Green Ranger. And he whoops the butts of all 5 Rangers, destroys their robot by hijacking it, and just generally is an unstoppable badass. That was what hooked so many people in the show. And for a while, they've got to deal with Rita's monster and the Green Ranger. And it's amazing good fights. In Zyuranger, he just doesn't like the Rangers for various reasons. Might get into that whenever I ever do a Zyuranger episode, which I might do. I mean, I've never actually sat through all of Zyuranger, but yeah. In Power Rangers, they defeat him, destroy the source of what is brainwashing him, and he joins the Rangers. But because his powers came from Rita, she is able to steal them. Like I said, in Zyuranger, he dies. He basically is given you have 24 hours to live unless you return to this room. And every time you leave this room, the clock starts again. So he's out there for... Well, like I said, I'll explain it for Zyuranger, but she is slowly zapping his powers every time he uses them. So he doesn't want to lose his powers. He wants to conserve them for big threats. But at the same time, he has got to help the other Rangers. So that's basically how they have him not always join up. They also sometimes have him handle threats that are over there. Because in Zyuranger, the Green Ranger didn't often help the Power he didn't often help the other team as much. He wasn't on good terms with them, so they had to basically Rita's released a squadron of putties over at that daycare center, and she's also released a squadron of putties over at that bakery. Well, Tommy's strong enough to take on an entire squad by himself, so we'll send these 5 to the bakery, and he can go save the kids at the daycare, something like that. Like, there's some pretty clever ways that they got around this, but it's pretty obvious ideas too. So, I forgot to mention one of my favorite things about the Green Ranger. He got his own Zord, his own giant robot, the Dragon Zord, who rises from the deep depths of the Angel Grove Bay, very much homaging Godzilla. I mean, stomping around. When he's evil, the Dragon Zord stomps around like Godzilla, destroying the city. It's just... The thing I do remember about the show is, while it was campy and cheesy, it's pretty aware that it's not the best thing ever written. So, yeah. Yeah, the Green Ranger was evil for like 5 episodes in a row, and I mean, that's pretty good. And there are some goofier moments. I mean, like in the first episodes, Billy, the tech genius wizard kid, builds a flying car. It's dropped after that episode, but he built a flying car because they didn't know what to do with this show. I mean, several times Rita tried to use magic to make evil Power Rangers, usually like upgrading her putties, or I think she tried to upgrade her putties into Power Rangers to have them fight on even ground. She makes her own giant Zord for her made of Goldar to use, which, yeah, that actually was an amazing fight, especially if you ever played some of the Power Ranger games from like the SNES or the Genesis era. That's a pretty tough fight. Power Rangers. I mean, it's pretty much available on Netflix now, I think, in most places, and I do recommend, if you haven't watched this show or haven't watched it in a long time, to try and sit down and rewatch some episodes. And if you haven't watched Power Rangers, I do recommend you start with start with the Day of the Dumpster, and then probably go to Green with Evil. That's the introduction of the Green Ranger. And if you do like those 2 episodes, try and give the show a watch. If you're rewatching the show, again, you should start with Day of the Dumpster and just go, oh, wow, this is not quite what I remember. There was an episode about an evil clown I know that scared some people, but once again, I never saw clowns as scary. I just saw them as highly punchable. Thank you, Batman. So, but yeah, I think it was 60 episodes, and a bizarre holiday special, or was the holiday special for season 2? Yeah, they did a holiday episode where Alpha is lonely, so Zordon teleports a bunch of kids into the command center to be his friend. I think Zordon's solution to everything is just, I should bring some kittens for some cheap labor. Yeah, I'll do it. I mean, the obvious joke a lot of people say is, why hadn't you just hired in like some trained warriors, or call up some army guys and imbue them with powers? Nope. 5 teenagers. Right now, I think this show, I can only enjoy it by riffing on the first season. Oh, I did just remember a really funny quirk, though, about Power Rangers. It got a Japanese dub. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, not only did they have Super Sentai Zyuranger, or Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger, to watch, a couple years later they got to watch Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which was redubbed in Japanese. So they didn't change any of the actors this time. So they got to see the same thing twice, plus the bonus stuff that was filmed just for Power Rangers. So I guess that's interesting for Japanese, but I find that so strange that a lot of Power Rangers shows are redubbed in Japanese. Like, this is some sort of entertainment Ouroboros. You know, the snake eating its own tail, never ending. Before we end this, I might as well mention a few other small things. Well, for one thing, the original music made by Ron Wasserman is cheesy fantastic. I mean, a couple years ago, he released a remixed version of all his songs for Season 1, and I snagged those so fast. I mean, Go Green Ranger is such a badly good song. I love it. I like, that's the thing. I don't like saying, I ironically like this. No, I straight up like this, but I admit that this is not award-winning. Like, that's what I like to say. It's technically bad, but it's still enjoyable. I don't like saying ironically enjoy. It's just a pet peeve of mine. Let's see, what else did this show do amazing? Well, as much as we make fun of it, it did give some general good life advice for children. And it lasted till now. I mean, it's had a few breaks a little bit, but I think they're up to almost their 30th anniversary. They had their 20th not too long ago. I don't know if they've had their 25th yet. But, yeah, this is an old show. The thing about, I should probably mention this, much like Kamen Rider, every year when they do a new Sentai, they remove the old team. For Power Rangers, they were scared to do that. They were scared that if we change the suits or the actors, kids won't know this is still Power Rangers. That's why a lot of people still to this day say Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, even though right now it's Ninja Steel Power Rangers, or Power Rangers Ninja Steel, I think is the current one. So what they ended up doing is, for the next show, which was not based off Season 2, still used the Zyuranger suits, but used the next season's Zords. So they had to use the Zyuranger suits for more combat longer than the Japanese did, but at least they could start using the different robots. And they did this for 3 seasons. They kept the Zyuranger suits for 3 seasons and then upgraded the robots every single time. Eventually, by season 4, this was becoming too expensive to what I understand, so they had to finally upgrade. So they did use the, I think it was O-Ranger suits, which we turned into Power Ranger Zeo. And I guess I should mention the suits. I still think the original Power Ranger suits are rather good, with the dinosaur-themed helmet and the one color with the triangles of white across the body. They are very eye-catching, and they do feel like a team, with the Green Ranger having a golden shield over his chest to differentiate him enough to saying, hey, I'm the strongest of the team. And it really works, and one of the things, like I said, the Green Ranger did give his powers to the Red Ranger before he lost them, and he also at one point gave them to the Black Ranger, which, yeah, the image of the Red Ranger wearing the Green Ranger's golden crest shield armor, or the Black Ranger wearing this armor, is fantastic, and one of my favorite things to do as a kid was to take the toy had the crest could come off, and you could pop it on other Rangers. I used to love doing that. Another little funny thing about Zyuranger is there was only one female, and that was the Pink Ranger. The Yellow Ranger was a guy, and that's mostly because yellow is not just a feminine color in Japanese. It can be a guy or a girl's color, so every now and then there will be a yellow girl or there'll be a yellow guy. I mean, they still do this now. And it was for a long time they were scared to put a guy in a yellow suit for Power Rangers. Hence why Trini was made the Yellow Ranger. They wanted 2 girls because yellow is a girl's color, plus it made a more balanced team to have 2 girls on it. And I kind of agree with that, but once you know this, you'll kind of notice that, yeah, Trini gets really buff when she transforms. I also have to sadly say her actress, Thuy Trang, I believe it's pronounced, did pass away a few years ago, I believe in a car accident, and as much as I couldn't say anything, I couldn't remember what Trini's character did, I did remember really liking Trini's character. As a kid, I think my favorite Rangers were green, blue, pink, and then yellow. I like the Black Ranger's the suit the most, but I never end up liking Zack as a character. Later seasons gave me one of my favorite Rangers, who is one of my favorite actors. But like I said, that'll be for season 2 of Power Rangers. We'll talk that about. I used to know when Zoo 2 technically started, but I can't remember off the top of my head now. I'll remember as soon as I'm done recording this. But overall, yeah, Power Rangers was one of those cultural phenomenons. I mean, I had the Power Rangers phenomenon first, and then a few years later the Pokemon phenomenon hit, and yeah, both Power Rangers and Pokemon are huge parts of my childhood, which is probably why I'm so fascinated in what we bring over from Japan. Like, as soon as I found out that both these things were Japanese-made, I did have that weeaboo phase where I thought everything from the Land of the Rising Sun was way more better than anything North America made. All that American crap is just so childish, so ugh. But obviously now I'm well aware that every bit of media is different, and yeah, I still love to import my things from Japan, but I just love some of the things we got nowadays. I mean, this is really a golden age of media. I mean, you can find everything from the older days nowadays really easily. I mean, Netflix has, I think, every season of Power Rangers, so I can access that at a fingertip, and I've watched a few bits of Sentai, and every now and then the Power Rangers version is actually superior to the Sentai. Some of my friends who are big into tokusatsu will probably lynch me for that, because there is a purism kind of thing going on. But I will call it when media is good and when media is bad, regardless of which came first or which came second. And from what I've seen of Zoo Rangers, though, Zoo Rangers is a lot better, but it will never be as iconic as Power Rangers. From my understanding, Zoo Rangers is just one of the middle-of-the-roads Sentais. I mean, it's liked, it's got its fans, but it's not like, oh, this is the best one ever. Pardon me, by a large part of the Sentai fan base. But Power Rangers is a juggernaut. There are still people who are, even from my age group, that when you say Power Rangers will only think of this team. And cheesy or not, aged poorly or not, that is an amazing thing to have. I mean, most shows would kill for a fraction of Power Rangers' household nameitude. Is that a term? It's a term now. So, yeah. I'm not really sure how to end this episode. I feel this is way more of a ramble than I usually do for Hyper Battle, but this show is just, I keep saying raw emotion, raw childhood nostalgia. It's just, I really need to know how to end this, otherwise I'm just going to keep rambling about how important this show was to my childhood. Well, I guess I'll just end it here awkwardly. May the power protect you? I don't know. Hope you enjoy this episode of Hyper Battle. We'll see you next month. Haven't really decided what next month's topic will be. Bye.
This has been a Jedi Dropouts production.